sure wait for me to get this party started, huh? Ain't nothing like a party. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
We are the residents of 516 Burger Street, which is the senior building, and we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Is this your first time coming here?
To this building, yes.
Okay, don't let it be the last.
Of course.
Okay.
Well, I hope that means I'll be invited back in.
Yes, we will definitely do that.
Great.
What we're going to do is we have some questions for you and our mayor, and I'm going to start it off by asking either or. What does the Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid cuts actually mean for someone like me
Yeah.
and everyone else here?
Yeah. No, that sounds right. I'm happy to jump in with Mayor. Did you want to say anything as well to open this up?
No, I just want to thank you for coming. I just want to thank the Senator for coming out and being in Newark and being with the seniors here. There are some dangerous things that are happening nationally, and we do need direction. And we need to work together, the municipality and the federal government, to make sure we're protecting the residents of the city and the state. So I'm glad that you've chosen to come here, and you're absolutely right.
Yes.
There are over 2 million New Jerseyans that are going to be affected by cuts, that could possibly be affected by these cuts.
Yeah.
And many, disproportionately, that, you know, speaks to folks in our city, like, and particularly people in this building.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, happy to answer that question, but just to start, I just want to say thank you again. I'm Andy Kim. I haven't had the chance to meet many of you, but I hope to be able to come around a lot more often and be able to get to know you all and understand the different concerns that you have. You know, first and foremost, what we see right now is very much a threat when it comes to Medicaid, when it comes to what so many people in this state, 2 million people, as mentioned, out of 9 million people on Medicaid, 1 in 3 kids in this state on Medicaid, seniors and long-term care, nursing homes, people with disabilities. So that is a very real and present danger right now. In fact, I'm going to be going back down to DC on Monday because in this next session, the Republicans are talking about releasing the actual legislation that would put into place some of these cuts. Now, I will say we don't know fully how they're going to go about doing it. Yeah, and so what we've seen is that they are looking to up to $880 billion in cuts. They are feeling the pressure, though, I will say, and that's a good thing. There are town halls happening all across New Jersey, all across the country. I'm trying to do a bunch that are putting pressure, in particular, on our 3 Republican members of Congress from New Jersey, because the majority in the House of Representatives so narrow that those 3 could very well be the margin that determines whether or not that bill passes or not. But the Republicans are feeling pressure right now. They are hearing from people with disabilities, seniors, and others, and they're hearing that it's people in red states and Republican areas also are on Medicaid. They are needing this kind of support and care. So that is something that I think is really important. And if people here in this room, if you are utilizing Medicaid, it's important for me to hear from you what services you get, how important it is for you. What I'll say writ large in terms of Medicare and Social Security, at this point we're not seeing the same type of attack upon those 2 as we did as we are seeing on Medicaid right now, but there's going to be impacts. First and foremost, what we are seeing on Social Security are efforts to try to close Social Security offices, reduce services in terms of phone call, ability to call in and be able to hear from somebody and talk to them about trying to address if you're having trouble getting, Social Security payment or this thing or that. We can't have a situation where seniors aren't able to get in front of people either in person or on the phone to be able to remedy that. The other things that we're seeing, for instance, is also, I talked with some hospital directors here in New Jersey, and they're saying, look, if there are severe cuts to Medicaid, which is, a substantial portion of how they get reimbursed for the care that they provide, They're saying these hospitals could very well close. So that is something that affects all of us. So like this is why it's important for us to see it's not just about the 2 million people in New Jersey that are on Medicaid. It's about our entire system. And if there are major cuts and straining our system, where already we know that we don't have the healthcare system that we deserve in this country. You know, we have a broken, fractured system where people fall between the cracks. You know, my father, someone who had a fall last year, and he's on Medicare, but you know he was on Medicare Advantage, and you know they weren't going to give him the kind of rehab treatment he needed. So they specifically said, oh, they weren't going to fulfill what the doctor said he needed in terms of rehab. So we had to try to move things around and whatnot. So we already see we have a broken system when it comes to healthcare. And I just really wanted to hit home. You know, this should be important for us, regardless of whether or not we are utilizing Medicaid ourselves. First of all, it's the right thing to do to make sure that those that need the care the most get the care. People with disabilities. You know, I brought as a guest of mine down to D.C. a man from Willingboro named Kevin who has cystic fibrosis. You know, he's not able to. Cerebral palsy. He has cerebral palsies and is dependent upon Medicaid for all of his care. You know, he said to me that he would not be able to live if it wasn't for Medicaid. So we want to make sure that he and others get the care that they need, but also all of us, our care will be reduced. You know, our health care in this state will be in jeopardy, if we're seeing cuts of that magnitude. So that's where things stand right now.
Mayor, would you like to respond to that question?
I think what the senator said was very clear. We are in a direct threat by these cuts that are proposed.
Yes.
And if we allow these things to happen, so it's important for us to be knowledgeable about the issues, to vote in these elections that are coming up, and to make sure we hold our elected officials accountable. Call our representatives, our Congress folks, call the Senate office, make sure they understand what your positions are on these things and how it affects you personally. Sometimes people are saying things, but they don't know how it really affects you. They say it on a high level, because they know it's wrong in their heart, but they need to know directly how you're going to be impacted by this. Like if you are losing care, if your services are going to go away, if Social Security office closed down, how is it going to affect you directly? Like you or your family members, and how is it going to affect care for your children or for your children's children, right? You got grandkids that are out here, how is it going to affect them, right? As well, children with newborn babies, all of these things is kind of detrimental, and so we need to make sure we are as vocal about it as possible, because you do have friends. We do have some friends in D.C. that want to fight for us and help us, for sure. So we need to make sure that we connect with them and stay connected.
And that's mainly what I want to know. What method are you planning on using to stop Trump?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you do
No,
that?
look, I mean, that's important. So right now, I don't want to go too into the weeds on the legislation, but the kind of legislation that they're using, they just need a simple majority. And right now we have a Republican-controlled House of Representatives and a Republican-controlled Senate. So it's dangerous in that way.
Yes.
But what I try to look back upon, you might remember in 2017, the Republicans had the same thing. They had Trump in the White House, they controlled the House and the Senate, and they were trying to gut the Affordable Care Act. They had legislation directly before to try to gut the Affordable Care Act. In fact, they passed it through the House of Representatives. But what we saw at that point was, again, people showing up at town halls all over the country, people making phone calls, people speaking out to the press about how the Affordable Care Act saved their lives, gave them better health care, things of that nature. And it caused a tremendous amount of pressure upon the Republicans to the point that a number of Republican senators, including famously John McCain, voted against that piece of legislation and actually stopped it. And so like I just take that as memory. I was not in Congress at that point, but that fight actually inspired me to step up to run for Congress, because it was my own congressman down in South Jersey that was leading the charge on gutting the Affordable Care Act. In fact, he's the guy that came up with the idea of cutting protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Well, I can tell you, like, I'm sure many people here in this room have pre-existing conditions. All of us either have pre-existing conditions or a loved one, a family member with pre-existing conditions. You know, my father is a polio survivor, had disabled his whole life. You know, also has a host of other problems. Same with my mother. So it's important to reach out and speak out in that type of way. To be able to, so I wish we had a, Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House or something like that could stop it more directly. But unfortunately, we have to play with the reality of this situation right now. But I am still hopeful that we can stop this, and we're going to do that by making these Republicans that have to vote feel the pressure. I want them to feel the same pressure, knowing that, my congressman in 2017 tried to cut health care, and look, he is no longer a congressman anymore. I took his place. And those are the types of things that are going to put pressure on them to try to feel it.
That's a question that was the next question for you. However, my question now is, are the Republicans aware that they have parents, grandparents, children that are receiving that little brown envelope every month or a blue envelope every month, or have direct deposit? I mean, are they that insensitive? Are they? Can I say what I want to say? Are they? Do they forget that they have those people in their families? That means they're going to have to go in their pockets.
Yeah. Look, you probably remember this, Mayor, right? Did you see that news? It was there was a news 2 weeks ago. The Commerce Secretary, Secretary Lutnick, was on doing a TV interview, and he said something. He said, if my mom gets a Social Security payment late, she's not going to complain. And he said that those people that are complaining about getting a late payment, these are people that are committing fraud. It's the fraudsters, he said, that are going to complain about getting a late payment. Do you remember hearing that, some of you, right?
Yes, I do.
You remember that, Mary?
You see, you watch everything.
That's why you guys got to speak up.
Absolutely.
Because there's people that are in desperately need these payments to pay their rent, to pay their bills. I was at a community meeting, Senator, on Hill Street, and we were talking about the landlord. And the lady gets up and says, I got a question for you, Mayor. What are you going to do when they get rid of my Social Security? Because I can't pay my rent after that. Just took it to another place. So you have to speak up.
Well, and the other thing that I'll add is look, I don't actually discount the idea that the Secretary of Commerce's mother may not make concerns about a late Social Security payment because he's a billionaire.
Right.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
He's a billionaire. I am sure his mother is not living Social Security check to Social Security check like my father is, right?
I mean,
Most of us.
So it's just that detachment, right?
Yes.
So
make phone calls. The seniors, us senior citizens, what can we do?
Yeah, look, I mean, I would make phone calls, write emails or letters to all the delegation members in New Jersey, especially some of those that might actually support what the Republicans are doing.
We need to do something that's going to be positive, pro-positive.
Yeah.
We can talk about a lot of things, but we have to do it. We need to have phone numbers, addresses, direct telephone numbers for whoever. I'm good at getting on the phones.
Yeah.
With certain people.
Well, we can make sure you have those
with certain people, And when it comes to protecting my roof over my head, I will do what I have to do. And I'm speaking not only for myself, I'm speaking for everyone in this room and everyone that's not in this room. Because there are quite a few people that are not here today, and we all feel the crunch. We all feel the crunch.
Well, also, I think, I hope what I'm telling you is that what the mayor and I are telling you, I hope this is informative to you. I don't know. I'm actually kind of curious, how much did you know before we're talking that, like, have you been hearing on the news that,
Yes,
that
yes,
Medicaid,
yes,
could very well be on the
yeah,
chopping
everything.
block?
Yes.
Did you know that 2 million people in our state, were on Medicaid?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, see, like, that's the kind of stuff we want to make sure people hear, because what the narrative is that the president is trying to put out there right now is that the people on Medicaid, they're lazy.
Right,
They're people that don't want to work.
right.
There are people that want handouts. There are people that are mooching off of the taxpayer dollars. Like, and I'll be honest with you, some people believe this stuff, right?
Yeah,
and
of course
like,
they do.
and I think it's
Them that
important,
didn't have
to fight back against that. We're talking about, again, seniors. We're talking about seniors that have significant concerns and issues. That we're talking about people with disabilities. We're talking about kids. As I said, 1 in 3 in New Jersey are kids, right?
Yes.
And so we need to kind of dispel that notion. So, yes, make the phone calls to members of Congress, raise it with other elected officials, but also just make sure that people in your community, people out there, that they don't buy into that disinformation. And tell them, like, again, it's not even just about people on Medicaid. Because some people will be like, well, I don't have Medicaid.
Jobs are
Right.
affected also.
Yeah.
Jobs are affected also.
But jobs are affected, but as I said, hospitals will be affected.
Yeah. Jobs.
Prescription drug costs will be affected.
Yes.
Like other things will be affected by this. So we're all in the same boat, when it comes to.
We
these
already can see a difference, our copay, and shot sky high.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
never had that until now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But if the Republicans are in control, and whatever we do, they have the power to counterattack this, then it seems like to me that our voices are fruitless. So I'm wondering, why aren't the Democrats? Why aren't they putting a better message out there, informing people when they attack and say something that is preposterous? Why don't you, like they say, the ones who are concerned about it making fraud? Then to me, that's a chance for you to put an ad out, say, no, these people aren't fraudsters, they are this and they are that. Because, people say, oh, people know better, but obviously they don't.
Right.
If 77 million of them voted, they don't really know.
Yeah.
So you need to put, like, I think, point for point, okay? The Justice Department are not after him because they don't like him. They're after him because, 1, he did this is wrong. 2, that kind of thing. Be a little more specific. You gotta, I think you should talk like you're talking to 2-year-olds. Minimize the conversation and put some more information out there, because to me, us calling and writing, how much good it's going to do if they're in control.
We always need to realize that the Republican Party don't care nothing about Medicaid or you. Because if their parents get sick, they are billionaires, they don't go to the same doctors that we go through. They don't have to worry about anything because they all are millionaires. They could care less. If the hospitals are closed up, if your parent gets sick, if you don't have food stamp or any of that stuff, which I do not get, but they do not care. The Republican Party do not care because they are rich and getting richer. That's all right. There's coming a day. God got it in control.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we better work.
Well, I will just say one thing on that front. Like, I think the Republican leadership, especially the Trump administration, they are rich. I mean, this is a billionaire cabinet. But when you think through how the Republican Party's been reaching out to working families and to others, and again, spreading disinformation about, who's best supporting those families, but like we were talking about, there are families that are struggling on their economic means that did support President Trump and the Republicans, and that's a reality that we have to confront. And they're the ones that need to hear, why is it? So I think that's a good point you raised. It's not just that they are trying to gut billions of dollars, potentially billions of dollars from Medicaid. The question is, well, why are they doing this? And that's where you have to follow the money. It's not just that they're trying to reduce the deficit by $880 billion. That's not what they're trying to do. In fact, they're not trying to reduce the deficit at all. In fact, they're going to take that money and put it straight into tax cuts for Elon Musk and the billionaires in this country, right?
Yes.
You know, so like that's what is important. It's not just that they're doing the cuts, which would be terrible already. It's that they want to do that, and for what purpose? It's to, give money back to people that are so rich that they have, their own rocket ships to outer space.
Right.
And so like that's what people need to hear, and the average American, even if they supported Trump, even if they're registered Republicans, I hope that that message can get to them, in terms of what the leadership is doing. Because that's where the disconnect is. Yes, sir?
Information needs to be put out, not only to us, but here, but it needs to be put out to the Republican people. They don't know until they get hit. And see, the hit really hasn't come yet. And everybody has to be raised up in this. Everybody. Okay? Your thing on your refrigerator or in your house, your to-do list. Just make that phone call. You can call the White House.
You should probably call the Congress people in this state.
I just went to the White House, Congress, Senate. We have a Congressman Kim who was come here today. We have the mayor sitting here who was fighting for governor. They fighting. But we have to do stuff too.
We have to assist them.
We have to raise up. We can't just sit back and think everything is going to be good, because it's not good. Okay? These billionaires are robbing the country. Okay? They don't know the information that I'm going to say I know and that he knows. They don't know. People don't know. So Democratic Party, what could be done is get information out, okay, to senior citizen buildings. In the regular community, outside the senior citizen building, to the Republicans. The Republicans talk dirty, and they call Jasmine Crockett. They don't like her.
Yeah.
Why? Because, listen, she's tough, and she's saying what she want to say. I think all of y'all have to do that. I hate to say it, but I said it.
Yeah.
Y'all all got to raise up.
My grandmother's 93 years old, and my son, he has a reading problem. So, with the phone numbers and the emails, will there be like prepared teams to come together to strategize, to get us to get the information out? We got to do something about it. Just sitting here looking at it, it's not going to work. So we need to get these phone numbers out and knock on doors, get the emails out for those who cannot see emails or send emails. We have pastors here from the interface who can, at our churches, we can hold stations for emails, calls for the seniors to help us to get this thing moving so it can stop.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think what you said there makes a lot of sense too, making sure that we're getting this message out through church communities, getting businesses engaged, because look, I mean, you might have saw, you remember we were watching, Trump raising the tariffs, raising the prices on so many things. He had crazy levels of tariffs, and he actually backed down from a lot of those. There still are too much there, but he did back down because of pressure, especially from the business community, right? So like those are things where we're trying to get these big hospitals, and I'll be honest, like the hospitals that I talked to in New Jersey, they're worried about closing down, but look, so are the rural hospitals in red Republican states,
right.
And I'm trying to get them to speak out as well,
Well, I think the mayor was speaking out. I'll see him on the
Hold on, there's a gentleman gentleman in the back there,
I just want to know, are you going to endorse Mayor Raz the governor, to help, on the state level?
Look, I have a lot of respect for Raz. I'll be honest with you. I don't feel like it's my place to come out with a formal endorsement for this primary. I went through a weird situation with my own primary last year for my Senate race. And I think we've had a lot of situations in the past where, where a handful of people, powerful political people in the state, try to dictate where things go and whatnot. I think the people should decide. So that. But like, look.
We already decided.
What's that?
We already decided.
Yeah. Look, that's a big part. That's a big part of what New Jersey plays a role on. So, without getting into the candidates specific, what I will say is that we are one of only 2 states in the country right now that has a statewide governor's race this year. I have colleagues of mine from all different parts of the country in the Senate that come to me and they're just like, what's happening in New Jersey? Like, what's the vibe like? People are looking to New Jersey to try to figure out, like, what's the mood and the atmosphere. And people will be reading into the energy here and certainly the results here to try to, get a feel for what's happening around the country.
I apologize for that sentence.
No. Look, I totally understand it. I totally understand it. And look, like a reporter asked me the other day, like, what do I think of the primary? And I said, like, look, I'm really happy that we have an actual primary this time around, because like it hasn't always been the case in the past. And I think the mayor's put together a great campaign, going all over the state, getting his message out. And we'll see what the people decide. I'm proud that we have. I'm proud that we have a real campaign, a real primary, and the people have an elevated voice rather than just having the choice made for them by people behind closed doors.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
I have a quick question. A lot of times we have town hall meetings like this. We get in a room and we talk about what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Just like in church, you praise God while you're in church, but then when reality comes outside, it seems like your faith falls. I'm saying, I'm voting for the mayor. We need a change. The same way they had a bold voice for the president to be where he is.
Yeah.
I think we need a bold voice that stands for the people. The mayor has been standing for the people. I know the mayor, I know his father, I know his brother, he worked for the people. And one thing I liked about the mayor when he first got elected, he said when he becomes mayor, we became mayor. So right now I'm saying for everybody in this room, if you're the mayor, we need to get the mayor to be the governor. So when he becomes the governor, we become the governor. Which would be a powerful
Look, I appreciate y'all, man. Let's
We're going away from the
I
subject.
appreciate y'all. Thank you.
My question is that what can the Congress do to bring all this information to the people's level? For example, if there's a poster that is being placed on some areas, or the local television or the radio can continue to be knocking at this information so that it will get to the level of the people to say, okay, this is what we do not want.
Yeah.
The social security is going to be gone, the Medicaid, Medicare, and everything is going to be gone. And where are we going to? What are we going to do when all these things is gone? The hospitals are going to be closing down. Whatever institution that are caring for the elderly, when they are closed, where are we going? So we need some information that will be getting to the masses, to the lower level. What can the Congress or the Senate or whatever that can they do to bring this information to the level of the people?
I'll talk about it on the federal level, but Mayor, what are your thoughts? I mean, see, like, like I work down at the Capitol. Mayor is the one that's, he's where the rubber hits the road here. Like, what do you think are the best ways to be able to get information out to people as you're talking to them? You understand where they're kind of getting their information from.
Well, I think town halls like this are important, that we need to do more of these, but we also should be able, the same way we run the campaign, we have to run a campaign against these people. Right, so we run campaigns usually to get ourselves elected, but we have to come up with a collective campaign to engage people to be against the stuff that's happening. So they can get constant messages our lady over there said, you know what I mean? The Queen told us we need to put out information that counters the stuff that they're saying, but organizing people. And I think Democrats as a whole, locally, we should be doing that, and nationally, we should be doing it at the same time, trying to get people to understand what's going on. Because people don't. People, a lot of confusion and fear.
Yes.
A lot of confusion, a lot of fear, right? So when I'm talking to people, they like what's happening here, they completely disregard what we're talking about and go right to that. We're talking about local issues that people have in their buildings. They skip all of that and go right to what about my Medicaid? What about my Social Security? What about this? What about my SNAP benefits?
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to get them some information because folks are scared to death. That's just real. They're definitely scared.
So, for example, some of the people that voted for Trump, they do not know what he stand by. Some know what he stand by, but they do not understand it. So, some people, most of the people voted for him, today they are regretting.
They know that.
If you get the information to them,
Right? But if this information gets to the local level, as the mayor has said, if you get to the local level, people will know what they intend to do. That by casting their vote, they know what they are casting their vote for. So we need to get this information to the level of the people.
yeah, and that's why it's important for people to hear from not just people like the mayor and me, right? Because I'll be honest with you, like if I say something about the president and his decisions, there's going to be a good chunk of the country that's just like, oh, well, he's just saying that because he's a politician or he's a Democrat, right? But that's why it's important to have, you know, faith leaders and churches and religious leaders step up, business leaders step up, you know, people that are, you know, coming at it from a different direction, for regular people to step up and say, this isn't about politics. Because I can certainly say that, and I hope people believe me, but there's, you know, a lot, I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of cynicism about politics. There's a lot of distrust. Like, we live in the time of the greatest amount of distrust in government in modern American history, you know?
That's right.
So, like, that's why your voices are so important, because it carries, you know, greater credibility, frankly, than sometimes the politicians do. Yes, sir.
Senator, my dear friend here tied into something that I want to talk about. I consider you a maverick in certain instances because you don't want to change the ballot here in New Jersey. But there seems to be a group of people that are looking out to 2026 that are practicing ageism and what they want to do to change how we do the primaries. How can we try to bring, and it's young people, how can we try to bring these young people back in? You want to run people that have not done anything. Have they been on a school board? Have they been a district leader? Have they done anything? All of a sudden, you want to kick out, I'll just use an example. I know this is not going to happen. I love Monica McIver because you don't think she's good enough. So how can we try to counteract what Hogg and them are trying to do?
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't fully know what he's trying to do, but, like, look, what I'll say is, it's important for us to try to get people engaged in public service, build up that experience in different ways. But we also have to fundamentally get to a place where we can try to restore trust in government and public service. Because what Trump has done, and it's not just him, it's been a long time coming, is there's such distrust in government that actually, like for me, I served in diplomacy and national security for my career, but in my campaigns, people try to use my public service against me.
Right.
You know, because they don't respect that public service, right? And so, like, you know, that's why you'll get people like Trump being like, oh, I can be president because I've never been, you know, like that not being in government, not having that experience can be seen as asset. I don't discount that business experience is invaluable. It can certainly be helpful in different ways. But we shouldn't be, you know, discounting the importance of having, you know, some type of experience, some type of capacity in that type of way. So, you know, I am right now trying to encourage, and I'm working with Congressman Jamie Raskin to try to get younger people engaged in public service and politics, to have some of that experience so they can try to, you know, build up and engage in that way. what I'll also say is, look, like, I don't think people should be going after elected officials solely based off of their age. But I do think we need to make sure that people feel a sense of accountability and a sense of purpose for what they're doing, and they should be connected in with their constituents. And if that's so, then they will be successful. They will continue to serve. They should not get apathetic. I say that as someone who, I first started to run for Congress when I was 34. And I had people tell me, you're just too young to do this. It's not your turn. And I just want to say, like, again, I don't think we should be trying to go after people solely for age, and that's not how I ran. But like, I do think it's important to have variety of voices. I'm right now one of the youngest senators in the U.S. Senate. I have colleagues of mine twice my age. I don't discount their capabilities in that way, but I hope they don't discount the value that I can bring, because I think it's important to have the voice of young parents in the U.S. Senate. I got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. I can talk directly about my concerns of being a young dad. Being a young dad of 2 kids under the age of 10 while having a father who is having cognitive decline and early stage dementia, and the challenges that I'm having being part of a sandwich generation. Like, I think that's an important voice to have.
Absolutely.
But I had people tell me in New Jersey, it's not my time to be in the U.S. Senate.
Right.
So like, I just kind of throw that out there. I understand what you're getting at, and I agree with large parts of it. But I also just want to say, like, I will never take for granted my role, and I always want to make sure that I'm trying to prove and show what I'm doing to work for the people of New Jersey. I didn't need a county line ballot system to protect me as an incumbent. What'll protect me if I seek re-election is my work and my service to this state.
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely
Yes.
correct.
Well, how
Absolutely.
will, okay, we know that the administration is targeting the Department of Education, and recently they also attacked Head Start. So my question is, how will that cut affect the state of New Jersey? Particularly, our money here in this city to educate our children. All of us have grandchildren, know someone that is in school, and I think that Head Start is important. They have actually attacked that. So, do you see that affecting Newark, New Jersey, and what did you attack? What did you approach to that?
Well, they already sent letters to the state asking these people to recertify for funds, whether they have diversity, equity, and inclusion, courses, and all this other kind of stuff. New Jersey already responded saying they're not listening to that, or they're going to continue to do what they've been doing. I mean, they haven't really taken significant amounts of money yet, but I think the threat is there, and we need to be prepared for it. Absolutely, on the state side, we need to be prepared for it. But we need folks like our senator and the Congress down there to push back and fight against this stuff, and our Attorney General to sue if this happens, because we think this is a violation of people's constitutional rights, to taking our money simply because we believe a certain thing, or we practice a certain thing, or we look a certain way. They can't take money from educating our children as a result of that, right? That's the reason why we have these laws in the first place. Why Head Start and Title I and all those other things exist in the first place, to combat discrimination and inequity. So we have to push back with the AG, and I think the senator's voice, we can definitely count on him as a friend down in the U.S. Senate fighting on our behalf, and that's important for us, to make sure that we know that there are people that are there fighting for us when we're not there. But uniting around that, we need our folks to unite. Senator Booker, Senator Kim, the Congress people. He said earlier there's 2 or 3 Congress people in New Jersey who could possibly be the swing vote or deciding vote to determine whether we get the money we're supposed to get or not get it, whether we get Medicaid is gutted or not, whether Social Security gets on the chopping block or not. That's why I said earlier that we should probably be trying to contact and call them, say, look, I live in New Jersey. The same stories you told us, you need to tell them. Say, this is what's going to happen to my family if you do this. We know who you are. So you can't do this to us, right? Elections are coming up. And that's the reality. I know we're running out of time too, so
Will it be
we got to wrap it up.
paper?
Huh?
Will it be physical paper that we can get out to the community with the emails and the numbers?
We can provide. I'll get my office to coordinate and provide that. Yep, that information.
Yeah, we can work with
to
the
everybody.
mayor,
Yeah.
see what has. We certainly have a lot of that in email and things like that, or text that can go around to people.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can certainly try to print some of that out and make sure we can
Yeah.
spread it around. But like again, like just making sure that you're kind of getting that information out there, because if you ask your average American, do you think that maybe we can make the government a little smaller or cut a little of the spending? Your average American's probably be like, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. But when you actually tell them, well, here's what's going to be cut then.
Right.
Like Head Start
Yeah. SNAP benefits.
polls
Snap.
enormously well. Like people
Yeah.
understand the value of programs like Head Start, especially when it comes to kids, right?
Yes.
And like again, some people will try to say, oh, that's just for people, parents who are too lazy and they don't want
Right.
to work and
Right.
pay for childcare. No, in fact, this is a program that's not only good for kids, don't punish the kids in any right, but also programs like that actually give space for the parents to go get a job. It's exactly what we want, is we want to provide that kind of support in that kind of capacity. And so yes, I'm going all over the state, including in these Republican areas and counties, and and raising up. I was at a Head Start program in Morris County and elsewhere, and I think it's important again to really show exactly what's on the chopping block. But Head Start is literally on the chopping block this week. It could be at any given day that we see a major problem. And please, follow me and the mayor on social media and other things, because you'll hear the alerts from us, and we'll try to get that out in other forms, not just social media, but other ways. But I'm grateful for you all giving me a little time, and me and the mayor some time to talk with all of you. I know you all know the mayor, but I haven't had a chance to be able to connect in with all of you. I hope you see that Jersey, we have public servants that are recognizing the urgency of this moment, but we also can't do it alone, which is why I wanted to come on out here, hear from you about the concerns here in Newark, and let you know the concerns you have here in Newark. People have it all over the state, and that's what we need to make sure we lift up.
So we
Just wanted to say, as a
Okay.
retired,
Just say one
more
more
question.
question.
as a retired, going into my second year retirement, teaching special needs children. I don't think that that when we say put out information, when I said that earlier, I don't even think a lot of their parents, I don't think that they know. We talking about the smaller children and the food and et cetera, but special ed education that is going to be cut, or isn't it, Mayor?
It would be on a chopping block if they take money.
Special, yeah, you're right. It's special ed, right now with the Department of Education cuts.
Right.
They're talking about potential things that would damage a program called IDEA,
Right.
which is the special education funding.
right.
And they're saying, maybe we'll get rid of that in Department Ed, move it over to Health and Human Services. But I don't think there's a single person that thinks that RFK Jr. is going to be somebody looking out for kids with disabilities in this country right now. To be able to do
There's a
that.
certain program with the insurance, what allows you to take care of your utilities and things with the health insurance. And a lot of us is using those resources from the health insurance to maintain our personal lives.
Yeah,
So it's important.
yeah. That's through Medicaid. Right. So
Very
let's thank the senator for coming out, please. We appreciate him for being here. Thank you. And I'll have Reverend Roundtree try to, for clergy folks that are in here, get you information for calls, and we'll make sure the leaders here get information to you guys if you want to make calls, if you want to write emails to specific people, that you could also get involved and engage as well. So thank you. I appreciate you. Love you guys.